All right, so yeah, we're about to do this assignment here that requires that we compare, for example, this function with some words. In other words, we're going to have to figure out what the 7 means and what the slope means. And I just wanted to remind you of the form. So in this part of the form is where the graph starts, so that's 2. So the number that goes over here is your initial costs. So that's, you started here at 2. It's the coordinate that you know. And then the slope, in this case, it goes down. Looks like it goes down 1, 2, 3, 4, and sideways 3, so that's negative 4 over 3. And this is a speed, ladies and gentlemen. So the slope is a speed. If you look at this line and you ask yourself how fast is it changing, how fast is it going down, that's a speed, and that's the slope. Whereas where it starts is something different. That's where it starts. So you can only start at 2, and then the slope is the speed. And we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to look at the word problem, decide what the slope and the intercept are, and then we're going to compare. All right, so for this I'm probably going to want to snip this into my program. Somebody in the front, how about Juan? Could you read from Will is filling? Herman,
Will is
filling.
a bucket with water. Let W of T denote the amount of water in the bucket. W, that's the amount of water in the bucket. Measure in gallons after 1 second.
All right, and so this function here is how much water there is. So let's look at it. It says W equals W of T. In other words, the amount of water that's in the bucket as a function of time is 7 plus T. So I'm going to first, this variable, T, does not have anything in front of it, and I've resisted this my whole teaching career. For some reason, you just have to have this 1. So there's a 1 in front of the T. All right, so if this is in mx plus b form, and I want to figure out what is the slope and what is the intercept. So what's the number that's in front of the variable that tells me how fast the water goes up, and what's the number that tells me how much water I have to start with? Peter, what do you think the intercept is here? There's 2 numbers, 7. So Peter did a good job of recognizing that this is in b plus mx form. In other words, this was the variable, so they switched the order. That's perfectly okay. And so he knows that this thing that's over here by itself, that's not multiplying anything, is the intercept, 7. So the water starts at 7. Now, is this water going up or down? Up. How fast is it going up? By the slope. What's the slope? Francisco Abril, what's the slope? Francisco Abril, read the number in red. So the slope is 1, and that means this line is increasing by 1. Okay, so the water starts at 7, and then it goes up 1 gallon. 1 gallon every second. So this equation says you start at 7. Yeah, 7 and start. So 7 gallons to start and goes up 1 gallon every second. Okay, so let's select all that apply. Which of these buckets were filled at the same rate of Will? So what's the rates that we wanted? Was it 7 or was it 1? We want 1. So we're looking for all. It says select all that apply, so there's more than one right answer. We want, go ahead, Alyssa. Yeah, the first one for sure. So we wanted one that had a rate of 1 gallon per second, and obviously Jake's, that is 1 gallon per second, is absolutely there. And then Terrence was 8 gallons a second. No, not Terrence. Sandy was 7 gallons per second. That's right, isn't it? Because it was 7? No, we wanted the rate, not the intercept. This was the intercept, so this one isn't right. And then this one is really tricky. Emmy started with 3 gallons, and then 5 seconds later there were 8 gallons. So it took, how many gallons did we get? In other words, y2 minus y1. So she started with 3. She started here with 3. And it went up here to 8, and that took 5 seconds. Okay, so she started with 3 gallons and went up to 8 gallons, and that took 5 seconds. So what was the rise? y2 minus y1, 8 minus 3. Between 3 and 8, what's the rise? 4. Try again. Alyssa Padilla, or Alyssa Valverde, between 3 and 8, what was the change in the gallons in the bucket? From Y2 minus Y1, 8 minus 3. The difference in the gallons. 5. So there were 5 gallons, and how long did that take, the run? Juan, the run, how long did it take? How many seconds? Okay, we need to start over. I'm sorry for going too fast. We need to read this and reread it and reread it. Okay, Vanessa, could you read from Emmy started with? All right, well, stop there. Stop. Okay, I'm going to draw a bucket. It has 3 gallons. Okay, keep going. Okay, later there were 8 gallons. And that took 5 seconds. Now, I want to calculate a rate using that information. So my question first is, how many gallons did Emmy place in the bucket? 5, because it went from 3 to 8. So that was 5 gallons. And then my second question is, how long did it take her to do that? Okay, so that means the run is per 5 seconds. So what is the rate in gallons per second? 5 divided by 5. 1 gallon per second. Okay, so this Emmy is equal to 1 gallon per second. Now, it's been so long I can't remember what I was trying to do. I wanted to match 1 gallon per second, so Jake was 1. Terrence and Sandy were not 1. Is Emmy 1 gallon per second? Valerie? Is Emmy adding water at a rate of 1 gallon per second, just like Will is? Yes, she is. So the 2 correct answers are Jake and Emmy. All right, I think we have time for one more example like that. So I'm going to select Jake, I'm going to select Emmy. All right, Willow and her friends. So I'm going to look at this equation. I'm going to figure out what the rate of the equation is, and then I'm going to pick the ones that match that rate. Okay, good. Somebody's already answered this one, so you can be an expert. All right, Willow and her friends. I'm going to start by looking at the equation and deciding what the slope and intercept is here. Okay, so Willow and her friends each filled another bucket of water, and then they poured it out. Let W of t denote the amount of water in Willow's bucket after t seconds. So how much water did Willow start with? Okay, I'm sorry for going too fast again. The function is 7 minus 1/2 times t. Now I want 2 things. I want to know where does the line start. Like here it starts at 2, and I want to know how fast does it change. The rate, which is the rise over the run, and the equation mx plus b gives me those 2 things. Where the line starts at 2, it starts here at 2, and how much it changes. It changes by going down 4 and sideways 3. Okay. Again, the equation 7 minus 1/2 t tells me 2 things. Where does the line start, and how fast does it change? So where does this line start? What is the intercept, b, of this line, and what is the rate, m, of this line? Dinira? In the equation 7 minus 1/2 t, what is the intercept and what is the slope in this form? Is which one? Okay, is it in front of the variable, like m times x, or is it by itself, like b? Okay, so you're still, I've heard a number with -1/2, but I'm not sure if I'm going to put it here because it's the slope or here because it's the intercept. Can you help her out, Alyssa Valverde? What's the slope? Okay, I'm going to go back to the example we just finished. In the equation 7 plus 1 times t, the slope is 1 because it's in front of the t, and the intercept is 7, which means I started the line at 7 and that it increased by 1. In the example 7 minus 1/2 times t, what is the slope? Peter, what's the slope of this equation? Peter, what's the slope? Okay, negative 1/2. Good, yes. The slope is here. It's the quantity in the form that's in front of the variable, and it's negative 1/2. So, and now the intercept, that means I start at 7. Okay, so let's go back and see what that means. So it means that I start with 7 gallons, and then how fast do I lose water? Negative 1/2 gallons per second. Okay, so I'm looking for the slope here that is equal to negative 1/2. So let's see which one is 1/2. All right, so if I go from 10 over 3, so if I go 10 gallons in 3 seconds, that's going to be Maya's rates. So 10 over 3. Is 10 over 3 equal to 1/2? Okay, I've got one yes. Let's take a vote. Who says 10 divided by 3 is equal to 1/2? Raise your hands. Okay, who says 10 divided by 3 is not equal to 1/2? Raise your hands. Okay, so let's check. Here's 10 divided by 3. Okay, 10 divided by 3 is more than 3. It's 3.33. But 1/2 is less than 1. It's 0.5. So 10 divided by 3 is not equal to 1/2. So Maya did not have a rate of 1/2. So let's keep going. What about Max? Is 10 divided by 25 equal to 1/2? I think we're probably going to need to use the calculator to answer that question. 10 divided by 25 as a fraction is 2 divided by 5. So is that the same as 1/2? Do we need to take a vote again? Brianna, is 10 divided by 5 equal to 1/2? No, obviously no. And this was no, but what about 6 over 12? Yes, it is. And let's use a calculator to double check that. 6 divided by 12, in other words, 6 gallons. The gallons that poured out were 6, and the seconds that took was 12. So that's 6 gallons in 12 hours, or 6 divided by 12. And 6 divided by 12 as a fraction is 1/2. Okay, so was Abby equal to this rate of 1/2? Yes. Okay, so the correct answer was Abby. All right, so I'm going to finish.